Internet, my name is Ayla Tesler-Mabe, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of my favorite guitar solos of all time, the iconic George Harrison solo in the Beatles' classic Something. And not only is this solo iconic in its own right, it is a masterclass in learning how to follow the changes and come up with beautiful melodic lead lines. So let's take a look at the first part of the solo. And this lesson is a little bit less about how to play each lick note for note. There is a tab for you to take a look at as we go through, but it's more about understanding why these lines sound so beautiful. So to give you an example, the first two lines sound like this. And where is this coming from? Well, let's take a listen to the chord changes, and they'll actually reveal exactly why those lines sound really melodic and lovely. So the first two chord changes of the solo are C major to C major 7. And this area of the neck actually falls directly within the territory of C major pentatonic. I almost got the name of the scale wrong. But this is a really neat trick. Anytime you can find the root note of your chord, in this case it's C, here at the 15th fret of the A string, for example, if I move down 3 frets and play my minor pentatonic scale shape starting from there, it's actually major pentatonic. So if I play from the root note, this is minor pentatonic, C minor pentatonic. And that's a great scale, but I'm playing over a C major and C major 7. Those are major chords. So it actually sounds really lovely to play C major pentatonic down 3 frets. Same scale shape though. So again, this is what we have so far. Coming from C major pentatonic. Now the next chord change, we go to a C dominant 7. So far we're still in C major pentatonic, but hold on. Here, George Harrison beautifully follows the chord changes by outlining one of the most important notes of that chord, the flat 7 or the dominant 7. And this note doesn't belong to major pentatonic because the notes of major pentatonic are 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. And obviously flat 7 is not included there. So the fact that he stepped outside the scale to grab that note was a perfect melodic choice. And then he does this lovely little bend that comes from major pentatonic. So the next chord change after C major 7, C dominant 7 is F major. And this is what he plays over that chord. And this is where I think this line is coming from. Here's F at the 13th fret of the E string. So normally, if I were playing an F, I would think to myself, okay, if it's F minor, I would build my F minor pentatonic scale. But there's this sneaky blues trick where you can add some special major notes within the framework of minor pentatonic that work beautifully over major chords. And I think that's probably where this line comes from. He's landing on the major 3rd, which is very essential when you're playing over F major. So here's where things get really interesting. The chords walk down from F major to F major 7, and he really outlines the major 7 note here, because this is the major 7 of F, and it perfectly outlines the chord change. And then the chords land on a D7, and he moves down to this part of the neck. And it's no coincidence that he moves down here, because now we're in D major pentatonic, because D major pentatonic works really nicely over a D7 chord. And how do I know that? Well, here's D at the 10th fret of the E string. And using that trick I was talking about before, where you move down 3 frets to find your major pentatonic, you can see that this line falls really nicely within that box. So that's why I think he chose those notes. And then, our next chord change is G major. And he has this really tasty lick here, which is coming from G major pentatonic. How do I know that? Well, here's G at the 10th fret of the A string. Move down 3 frets. And you can notice that the lick I just played fell perfectly within that pentatonic shape. And it's no coincidence. So this next line is very interesting and kind of breaks the rules, quote unquote, a little bit. But at the same time it doesn't, because it sounds good. And there's a reason for that. So over the G chord, after we play that really tasty major pentatonic lick, we play this. And what's cool about this line is a lot of the notes aren't really safe notes to play over a major chord. For example, we're starting on the sharp 4, which is a really out there note choice. And then he actually lands on the minor 3rd over a G major chord, which is really interesting. But it works perfectly to build tension, leading us to the last part of this phrase, where we have this chromatic walk down from 6, flat 6, landing on 5. And here is a really cool trick. If you want to build tension and you do all this crazy chromatic stuff that like adds all sorts of dissonant and interesting colors, and you land on the 3rd or the 5th of the chord, it'll probably sound really good, because the 3rd or the 5th are really safe notes. So after playing all these weird notes, he lands perfectly on the 5th of G, and it's just a wonderful resolution, and probably my favorite line of the entire solo. So this next part of the chord progression is all in A minor, and the chords are really interesting. We have an A minor to an A minor major 7, very spooky chord, leading us to an A minor 7 to an A minor 6. That's a classic chord progression called the line cliche that lots of people love. Stevie Wonder uses it a lot, and a lot of old school jazz and everything. But this is all in A minor, and it's no coincidence that this next part of the solo all falls within A minor pentatonic. But essentially, everything I just played there came from A minor pentatonic, plus this really cool extension that you can add to the top of the scale. And I've talked about that a lot in some of my other videos. But in case you didn't know, you can add this really nice extension to your E string root minor pentatonic shape, as seen in the diagram on the screen. Basically, once this whole chord progression happens, we land back on the intro motif of the song, the iconic that beautiful iconic lick that comes and goes throughout the song and arguably ends the solo. This first part is over an F major chord. This is such a beautiful line, starting from the major 3rd of F. And again, like I said, the major 3rd is always a great choice to play over a major chord. It's a great note. But here's where things get really interesting. We actually end up playing the sharp 4, which is a note that comes from a scale called Lydian, which is often associated with sort of a mysterious, mystical kind of feeling. And I think that's why this intro has that feeling, or at least to me it does. That beautiful half-step bend resolves again to our major 3rd, but here, this next line follows our chord changes perfectly, outlining the 5th of our E-flat major chord, and then the major 3rd of our G major chord, and then we finally resolve to C. And while this is walking up chromatically, what the chords are doing underneath, in case you're still confused, are F, E flat, G, bringing us to C. So there we go. I hope that demystified this iconic solo a little bit, I'm gonna play through it one more time while outlining the chord changes underneath. Because again, the reason the solo is so melodic is because it just so beautifully outlines each chord change. It hopefully gives you some ideas around how you can do that in your own playing as well. So, enough talking, let me play. So hopefully you could hear how each line of the solo is connected to the beautiful chord progression. One of my favorite solos ever, probably one of the reasons I picked up the guitar in the first place. So I really wanted to make a lesson focusing on it. So thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this solo breakdown, and leave a comment down below if there are any other solos that you would like to see and hear me break down this way. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!